everybody. Welcome back to Sideline. I'm Brooke Fletcher. That's my girl, Danny K. Danny, we're rocking the slick backs today. I like it.
Yes.
I like the scarf. That's very European of you.
Thank you so much. It's a scarf company called 𝗙𝗏. They sent me a couple. They're amazing, beautiful scarves. I don't know if they're based in Chicago, but I actually think that they are. At least their PR team is based in Chicago. Wonderful scarves. But this is day 710 of dirty hair. So this is what happens.
Well, it doesn't look dirty at all. You're still in Rome, right?
I am still here. Travis just left this morning. He was here for a week. We had such a great time, but it is the home stretch. I am very thankful to be here. I feel like I have to preface saying what I'm going to say next over this. I'm so ready to go home.
I can only imagine. And everybody at home, I'm actually in San Diego. So we finished up our series yesterday, and I, with versus the Marlins, hopped on a plane, and I got here late last night. So I am here at our house.
That upsets me and makes me want to be home even more because you'd be within 1 hour of each other. We could have done this in person.
I know. And guess where we're going tonight?
Are you
Blanco.
going to Blanco? Oh my.
Our favorite restaurant.
I'm so jealous.
We'll get margs. We'll get margs and guac later. But we have a really
Jake's. I'm sorry, Brooke. One more thing. I'm gonna go get Jake's beer the next time I'm in Chicago.
Okay. Well, and I'll send you some beer because it's, like I said, I'm not just saying that. It actually is really good beer.
I'm excited.
So I will bring you some, and then we'll have some when you are here back in San Diego, back in the States. But Danny, we have a really good show today. We have a very special guest. You at home probably have seen her covering some of the biggest moments in sports, MLB postseason, March Madness, and she's a staple at MLB Network. Gosh, she's been there for over a decade. She is a co-host on MLB Central. She does everything. So we're so excited to welcome Shehadi to the show. Lauren, it's so great to see you.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh,
we know how busy you are.
To have you on. I mean, my goodness, I feel like we're being blessed with broadcasting royalty right now.
Oh my gosh. You made my day.
I mean, gosh, you've been at MLB Network, for over a decade, and I want to get into all of that. But I'm just curious how you got into the industry and just fell in love with broadcasting.
Yeah, Brooke, I remember I was a Cal Ripken Jr. fan. My dad took me to watch him break Lou Gehrig's consecutive games played streak. I was 12 years old. It was against the Angels. It was in Baltimore. And I remember thinking, whatever this is, I want to bottle it and do it forever. So I went to University of Florida. My first interview was Steve Spurrier, and I remember stumbling through my question. And then afterwards got this high. I was like, I want to do this. So I made 100 tapes and I sent them all out. VHS tapes.
Wow.
And I got one call back from Minot, North Dakota. And I was the weekend sports anchor and weekday sports reporter, $9,000 a year. I went there. It was negative 40 degrees. But Danny and Brooke, I'm telling you, I learned everything. I would drive my little station wagon into Saskatchewan, Canada, and shoot JV ice hockey. And then, come back and put my jacket on and report the news. And I messed up so many times. And I remember calling IndyCar, NASCAR, and all that stuff. And it just didn't matter at that level. And those people kind of took me in as their own. And so from there, I went to CBSSports.com. And then from there, I went to MLB Network and TBS. So it's been a beautiful journey that I'm really grateful for the steps to get here, if that makes sense.
And I think it's really beautiful that you can share that part, right? The $9,000 a year. Look, mine was a little bit more, $24,000 a year.
But I
understand. Yeah, we figure it out, right? But it's so fun because I think it's important. Because sometimes, especially some of our listeners that want to be broadcasters, it's very discouraging because everybody wants to hire people with a ton of experience already. And what do you do when you don't have experience? You do exactly that. You just go where you can make it work for a little while because you believe in your dream. So I think it's really cool that you had that background now leading to MLB Network and all the countless things that you do. So what is a typical week in this time of season look for you?
Yeah. Okay. So I work on MLB Network Monday through Friday. We host a show called MLB Central. It's 10 to noon. And it's kind of looking back on the day and looking ahead at the day in a way that your grandma, your 7-year-old kid, and your ball player would love. That makes sense. I ask the questions from a fan perspective. I have a co-host who's witty and funny, and then an analyst who's played 16 years in the big league. So we come at it from all angles. And then on Tuesday night, I host TBS Tuesday Night Baseball. So I fly to Atlanta like tomorrow, or I'll say it whenever. On Tuesday mornings, I fly there and host my show from Ballpark Cam at Truist, and then I go and host the pre and the post game for Tuesday for TBS. So it's a busy, beautiful grind, but I love it.
Yeah, you're staying busy. I mean, MLB Central, I think, is one of the best shows on MLB Network just because I love how you're able to, I mean, there's a lot of great shows, but to your point, I think just being able to show your personality and just being able to talk sports, it's just like you're sitting there in the living room, just like hanging out with your friends. And, I just think, how do you feel like being on that show has kind of just, helped you just become more well-rounded in just in your career?
Yeah, I think, Brooke, it makes you realize that at the center of what we're all doing, it's entertainment, right? So the viewer wants to be entertained. They want to talk X's and O's. They want to talk about baseball. They want to talk about basketball. They want to talk about football. But at the center of it, they want to enjoy themselves. That's why we're watching TV, right? That's why we're turning on the television. So our show runs the gamut from hardcore breaking down Vlad Jr. swing to what kind of cereal do you like? What's your favorite cereal? And if you say Honeycrisp, I'm out. Like the other day we did top 5 and Frosted Flakes wasn't in someone's top 5. And so that's what we get into.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the only answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm a Captain Crunch Berry who hurt the roof of your mouth, power through it kind of gal. But Brooke, what about you?
I call me like 80 years old. I like Raisin Bran.
Oh my gosh, old school. Okay, I love it.
I know. I was telling my coworkers that the other day. They're like, ew, get out of here. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with some good Raisin Bran. Get your fiber in,
I agree. But that show runs the gamut, right? And that's what people have identified with. They just love it. They just love the laughs. And we make fun of ourselves. We mess up half the show. And that's the beauty of it. So...
Isn't that so fun though? When you're like for a long time, isn't it like, hey, you can't mess up, and then you get on a show where you get to actually show your personality and have some bloopers, and that's what makes the show.
That's what makes the show. It really is. When we mess up something and we, get the wrong highlight, and Robert says, "Nope, that was wrong." All right, and we all laugh, and everyone at home laughs too. We're like, "This is just gold." You can just mess it up and still have a job.
But isn't that, and to your point, Danny, you were talking, like the industry, I feel like is such an interesting spot right now because people, like when you look on social media, they value like authenticity. They value like, it's okay to mess up, just showing your personality. Like, it's just crazy to see how it's just continuing to evolve. And like, now it's not just about, sitting there and just reporting the news. You're full on brand and your personality.
It's so funny that you say that because I used to turn on HLN headline news and Robin Meade, I don't know if you guys know her, but she was the anchor and she was captivating. And why was she captivating? She would talk to you. You didn't even know if she knew she was on TV. She'd open the show and she'd be like, "Oh, my alarm didn't go off. What is going on? Good morning. Let's hang out." And I'm like, does she know she's on the air? And it was that warmth. I think for me, we all watch TV for different reasons. For me, I gravitate towards warmth. If you seem like a kind, warm person, I'm in. I want to hang out with you. I want to watch you. So I think that's what we try and bring in the morning,
I think it's great. I mean, that's the type of television I want to take in. I always told people, look, if you wanted the poised and proper, you are not hiring me. Okay? That's just not somebody hire. But
I know.
You do have to know a lot. Let's not take away from your knowledge because certainly you're covering multiple sports. So let's just start with baseball because obviously you guys are in the thick of baseball season. I'm in Timbuktu talking about tennis. So somebody catch me up. Who do I need to know about right now? Who's impressing you personally and then team-wise?
Ooh, team-wise, the Mets are impressing me, Brooke. I mean, Danny, for me, I just feel like this was a team that on paper could have been good, but could have gone the other way. Francisco Lindor has turned the corner. There were so many questions about Pete Alonso and whether or not he was going to come back to Queens, and he's a force. The Dodgers and the Padres are always up there. They've got moxie. They've got just that energy. And then in the American League, I'm all about the Detroit Tigers. Brooke, you spent time in Detroit. They've got it. And I just feel like they're rotation in a postseason series with Skubal and Flaherty. And there's just that arms win in October. We all know that. So those are kind of the teams I'm watching. What about you?
It's been so fun to watch the Tigers because when I was there, Tarek Skubal and Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, they were in the minors, like they were going through the thick of it. And so just to be able, like everybody was talking about the future and like, these are the guys. And we didn't know when I was there, I think they had they had the worst record in Major League Baseball. And so we're like, okay, when are they going to turn that corner? Just to see the process and to see it pay off has just been so cool. And I know they're in the White Sox division now, so they're like the enemy, but I feel like the White Sox are kind of in a similar situation where it's like you can see the wheels starting to turn, but it's just like it's going to take some time. But you mentioned the Mets, the Cubs. They have been fun to watch. I mean, Kyle Tucker, the impact man that he has had, they're leading their division right now. So we're playing them in the crosstown rivalry later this week. So yeah. So Taylor, Lauren, I know you know Taylor McGregor, so we'll be doing the game together. Yeah.
So much fun. And Danny, to your point earlier, it's funny because baseball is one of the only sports that you can't get through a game if you don't know it. If that makes sense. Like it's a really tough sport to get through a game if you're not in it. And I think that that's the challenge of MLB Network, and what our network kind of does really well is like we breathe it, we eat it, we know all about it. So the passionate fan is able to just kind of dive in and know that we know, you know what I mean? We're doing the back knowledge, we're having the knowledge, and we're kind of putting it all together for them, for the fan.
But I think that's what makes it so special because for somebody like me, my background is I was a college basketball player, I worked in football and I work in tennis and stuff. So baseball has never been a sport that I've covered other than from a gambling degenerate who's going to hit a home run, who's going to hit their strikeout number, maybe like your basics of that. But if I'm not in it, you're right. You kind of get away from it. But I do think that's what makes your show so interesting because you do actually gravitate and grab those viewers in, people like me who maybe haven't watched for a while, but can jump right back in and say, oh, this is the hot team. This is exciting. And this is what's going on. Because I think having a general bit of knowledge, if you're a sports fan across the landscape, is important.
It's so true. And I always point back to this conversation I had with one of our analysts, Carlos Pena. It was a couple of years ago. And he was talking about high probability swings. And I played softball my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I think I know what a high probability swing, but I don't want to end up on YouTube. You know what I mean? By asking this dumb question. And I said, I think it's that you stay through the zone, right? So I was like, should I ask it? Should I not? Should I ask it? Should I not? I thought if I'm asking it, if I'm wondering, and I've been in this game for 15 years and also played my whole life, like there has to be someone else. So I asked it and he was like, I'm glad you asked that. It's this, the bat stays through the zone for a longer period of time. It's a high probability. And I thought, great. Like I kind of knew, but I kind of didn't. And I think that's the magic. That's where the magic lies, right? There's someone out there wondering, and it's okay to ask the question because not all of them are, 20-year Major League vets watching the show.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up because I actually got some really great advice. I was actually talking to Alana Rizzo and she was saying, I think women in this industry, when you first get in, it's like you're so scared to ask questions because you don't want to sound educated, right? Or you don't want to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. But like that's something that I've had to learn over the years was like it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be because everybody is still learning the game to some capacity, right? Is that something that you've kind of had to learn yourself? I feel like you have a lot of wisdom being in this industry, especially in baseball. Like it's okay to not know sometimes and have all the answers.
Absolutely, it's okay. It's also okay to not ask a question with a ton of information to try to prove that you know it. And I think that this is something us as Sideline reporters, we always try to do. We try to prove that we know what we're talking about, and that's why we're there. When the magic lies in the exact opposite. You want to get to your player as soon and as concise as possible. And it's something I've learned over the years, and I still kind of try and work towards, right? It's not, you were 4 for 4 with 2 RBI and then a double in the gap. He knows. Right. He's like, and he's in his head the whole time formulating what he's going to say. Instead of, you get a pitcher and he's back in the day. I remember I was talking to John Lester back in the day after a playoff game. And it was at the time he was hitting and they there was a pitching change right before his at bat.
Uh-huh.
Like, meaning like he was a feared hitter. It was like kind of a funny thing. It was just like, you know, the matchup.
Yeah.
And I thought, I gotta break this guy because he's not a media, like he doesn't love to kind of open up to the media. So I remember thinking, this is a risk. It was on TBS, and I was like, is that the first time there's a pitching change before you're at bat? And he was like, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank God I paid off. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it could have fallen completely flat. But I think those kind of questions are where you get that. Then I had him, you know what I mean? Then our interview was great because he was kind of like, it wasn't, you know, stock. I think that's kind of where I'm trying to always go. It doesn't always work, but that's the goal.
No. Isn't that the most like nerve-wracking thing is when you're like waiting for, you have like an idea, but you're like, oh gosh, is this going to be received the right way? Like, and sometimes you're like, do I take the risk? Do I not? But like, sometimes you just got to go full send. If it doesn't work out, like whatever. But no, I mean, that's great instincts though. Like, and I think Lauren, like what you're so good at just coming across natural and just like making the interview just feel like a conversation. And that's one thing I always watch. I'm just like, man, she makes it look so easy. And I think that's what like is the difference between like good broadcasters and great broadcasters.
That is so kind. I mean, really, because that's kind of what we're all trying to do, right? And I think that what you try to do is listen, right? And that's the hardest thing. I don't know how to listen, really, when there's like 10 million people watching in the playoffs. I have such a hard, do you guys have a hard time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes when I haven't done baseball, obviously, but sometimes when there's like 7 people in your ear, screaming fans next to you, the actual action happening too. Sometimes I'll be like drifting away and you're like, wait, no, stay focused. Stay here.
Lauren, do you still get nervous?
Yeah.
You're like seasoned pro.
Like a leaf. Shaking like a leaf before every single game. I even hate to admit that. Do you guys?
Yeah, I think there's definitely moments for sure.
There's something about the opening hit. That's when I get the most nervous. After that, I feel like I can breathe and I'm like, okay, we're finding our groove. But something like the opening hit, I feel like I'm going to throw up.
That's so funny. Mine comes later. Like mine's if there was a long gap until you spoke again. It's like, wait, I'm out of practice. What am I doing again?
Oh, really?
Mine's like way later in the middle somewhere.
I remember we were doing a Yankee Red Sox game and our producer right before the open, he was like, all right, crew, let's go. 10 million to the world. And I was like, excuse me. I gotta be like, and after I said, you can never say that to me again. Okay, you understand me? In my mind, no one's watching this. Shh.
I would have.
And then,
oh my gosh, freaked out. No, I would have freaked out.
And then they say, the goal is to listen, right? You got to listen. I remember there was an interview. They always stick out, right? The ones that you do poorly, you carry them with you. I remember I was interviewing David Price, Red Sox Yankees postseason. I asked him the first question and he said in the answer, I worked on something in the bullpen yesterday that led me to the success today. Do you know? What would the next question be?
Well, what was that?
Yeah, you would think, Dana, you would think. This is it. Because, you know, in my head, I had the next question. Mm-hmm. I think about that damn interview every week. I'm like, how are you, how would you not?
Oh, I know.
But I always tell young broadcasters, I'm like, listen, and it's hard to think. It is, because you think, you don't want dead air. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then it might be like 2 seconds, but when you're down on the field, it feels like it's a freaking hour. And you're like, oh my gosh, this was awful. Everything just seems so much worse than it actually was.
It's so true.
Let's give some kudos where kudos are due. Okay, so that was one scenario that you'd like to take back. How about a scenario that you're super proud of?
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I think always when you interview an entire team at the end of the game is the challenge, right? You want to navigate through and you want to, like Brooke said, kind of make everyone feel like they're getting their due. In March Madness, we do that a lot. In postseason baseball, and I'm not on the field as much as Brooke, so I'm not on the field a lot. I'm usually in the studio, so it's a different dynamic, right? You're getting used to like the players and when you're on the field. But when you do March Madness, the whole team comes around and you just learn the team truly a week before, you know, in some cases. So you want to give everyone their due. I think that's the biggest challenge. And sometimes they go poorly. And then when you feel like you got to everyone and you ask succinct, open-ended, good questions, eliciting emotion and response, because a lot of time in March Madness, they don't care about, you know, the turnovers or the free throw. They care about, you know, this is a first team since, you know, this is a Cinderella story. You want the emotion. When you get that and you get through it and you've navigated a team, that's when you feel like, you know, wow, okay, that was a good one. And for every good one, there's 25 bad ones. But that, you know, that's what we all hope to do, right? That's what we keep doing this for the good ones.
What do you have a favorite memory from March Madness? Because I mean, you've been doing that for so long too.
Yeah, I mean, just this year, I covered the Gators, and they were on the way, punch their ticket to the Final Four. And it was a bunch of kids who, a couple of them grew up wanting with Tim Tebow posters on their wall, and they wanted to be there. So the questions wrote themselves, right? You know, you've been dreaming of being with the Gators since, so those kind of wrote themselves. But I went to Florida. So it was just kind of, I was a fan, and I was trying to tone it, you know, I was trying to tone it down. And I remember I reached out to Erin Andrews because I was like, I'm channeling you, help me. And she was like, I can't take this. It's too stressful. And I remember thinking that going into that game being like, Erin Andrews responded to me. And that was what I was thinking about, you know, and I'm like, I better do her proud. But yeah, you know, when you're a fan of the team, it's always wonderful.
It's hard. Wait, so I'm curious. So Erin went to Florida as well. Were you guys there around the same time, or have you guys known each other for years?
She had graduated, and then Laura Rutledge and I came. Laura Rutledge is a little bit younger than me. And yeah, so Erin was first, and then me, and then Laura. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because you're
what is
talking
it with
about
Florida, the broadcasters, elite broadcasters here?
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh. They have a great broadcasting school. I know there's a couple colleges that really kind of have an emphasis there. So yeah, I loved my time there.
Because you're talking about Florida and you're talking about March Madness, it just popped in my head. But what do you do when it's a really complicated story? Because I used to cover Todd Golden back when he was in the WCC. And obviously there was some controversy surrounding him. If you ever had to come up with, you don't have to talk specifically about Todd Golden, but just anytime you come up with a controversial topic or there's something crazy going on, because let's face it, it's not always sunshine and rainbows when you deliver news or hits or have to talk to a player or a coach about something a little bit more serious. How do you approach those moments?
Yeah, for us, when we approach moments like that, it's usually we're not interviewing the player or the coach or the manager. It's usually a reporting of the facts. So I don't really have to delve into that too much. Usually it's just, you know, a 20-second, here are the facts, and we'll follow the story closely. Or I throw to my analyst and ask him one question. I think in those instances, I try to just be a host, right? Ask out of my analysts what they know and what they think. And my job is to traffic cop. That's why I try to play those situations.
Probably the easiest way to do that, because I know I probably speak for all three of us. We probably lean towards the more positive side of things. So sometimes when, I don't know about you, that's when I get the most amount of jitters, is when I know I have to say something that's like not exactly pleasant to have to talk about, and you have to say the facts correctly because you don't want to end up as one of the headlines that got it wrong. Yeah. Those types of dicey situations are really hard to navigate. It's
absolutely true. I just try to report the facts. And then on a much lesser scale, even when you have to talk about, I work at MLB Network, and whenever a player is struggling, gosh, we have this soft spot for these players and these wives who dedicate their lives to this game and play at the highest level. And there's going to be ebbs and flows. So even when they're struggling, I never, if you ever watch our show, like we never say, oh, he was 0 for 16. I steer clear of that. I'll say like, you know, first hit this week and my gosh, in a big spot, instead of 0 for 16. Because I know that players watching, like, you know what, like everyone's going through this. Do you have to? And I just kind of focus on the glass half full. And I hope that the players kind of notice that about our show. And we just like, we are pro player. We always report the good kind of thing.
And I think that's so important. And if anybody who's watching who, aspires to even just cover a team, I think that's important just to, let the players know, because I think it's so much about building those relationships and building that trust. And so just letting them know, like, hey, we're on your side, like trying to find those positives there, because it really is just like, it's a team effort. And, I think that's such a good piece of advice for anybody who's wanting to get in this industry, especially like covering a team. It's like, even if the team is down, try to find the positives, because it's so much about relationships.
Yeah. Can you imagine just someone saying, Lauren or Brooke or Danny misspoke 10 out of the last 20 times. They messed up their words. They were terrible. Can you imagine?
No,
that's a great way of putting it, because I tell you, in journalism school, they really dial into you that, you need to have the headline, you need to find the story, you need to find whatever it is. And I remember talking to a lot of professors and I was a little bit of a pain in the butt in that aspect. And I've had a lot of journalists actually recently, young broadcasters, reach out and say, well, I have this big headline because I saw X player at a party, or I have insider information. Like I can, and I'm like, no, not the way to go about it. But it's so interesting how the headline seems to be such the important thing in school. But I do think that we're all saying the same sentiment here, that once you're actually in the real world and you're dealing with human beings day in and day out, the advice is definitely like, think about how you would like to be portrayed and how your family would like to hear the news about you a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's so true. Were you going to share a story?
No, I was just going to say, you listening to Danny made me think of the 𝗵cie 𝗿𝗃 conversation for this week. And you look at it from a player perspective, his team needs him to play first. And then you also have to look at it from a personal perspective, right? He didn't feel like he was being treated like a franchise player. And there's always, there's always conversation around both sides, So if you just share them and, everyone's a human at the end of the day.
I know. And gosh, and then even the 𝗵ance 𝗿𝗀 thing and just what was going on, with just his family. I know. Danny.
Can you guys tell me what's going on? I'm sorry for both situations. Let's start with 𝗵cie 𝗿𝗃 really quickly, just for our listeners, in case they're not
Lauren,
as clued in. Let's clue us in.
Yeah, so 𝗵cie 𝗿𝗃 was a third baseman franchise, highest paid in franchise history for the Boston Red Sox. They signed another third baseman, and then their first baseman got injured, and they needed him to play first. And he just said, basically, are they going to have me play outfield next? And there were two sides, right? Half the side said, you do whatever your team wants you to do. You're paid $300 million plus. And the other side was, he didn't feel like he was being treated the way a franchise player would, right? Like other people who move around, got more time to practice. I see both sides. So you know what I mean? There's just always a human element. As a human, he didn't feel great about it. He was replaced, and then he was the replaceable, So that's that side. And then 𝗵ance 𝗿𝗃 is just getting threats to his family, just the sweetest, kindest man and family. There's just no place for it in sports. There's just none.
I mean, talking about his kids, Danny, that's awful. Social media, it could be the greatest thing ever. And then that's the dark side to it. And it's just, I just don't understand how people feel like that's okay in any capacity.
Lauren, how have you navigated social media?
I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. I've never done an Instagram story in my life. Not one.
Good for you.
No.
I don't know if that's good for you. I just don't even know how to do it. Like my best friend, Kelly Nash, she'll be like, Lauren, this is how you do it. I'm like, oh, Kel, because Kel's like the best. She's the best at everything. My best friend, Kelly Nash. But no, I'm not good at it. I often feel like it's look at me if I do it, if that makes sense. But I do try and post my, fun stuff of this job, because I feel like there are baseball fans who want to see what it's like to, be on the field in a playoff series. So I try and kind of document that, kind of the big games or the big, all-star or something like that. But I am not good at it. That's the bottom line. I feel like I'm putting myself out there in a way I don't really feel comfortable. That is not my full life at all. It is total highlight reel. Like that is 1/100th of what I'm doing on the daily. I also feel like I actually don't want you to know what I'm doing on the daily basis.
Yeah.
Like I don't want that out. I just want it for myself. So the mixture of feeling like it's way too look at me, and then I just want to be private. I post about once a month.
I respect
Very
that so
important.
much because I generally am a very private person, and that's something
You're
that
so
like
good at it. You're so good at it.
I don't know. I don't know if I am. Well, we did hard launch on our engagement, so we were able to hide that. But I don't know. But then now it's just like it's become everybody wants to know what's going on in your life, and it's just like trying to find that balance. Is like, okay, I understand, like we're in this new age of social media, and we're new in this new age where it's like I'll give you a glimpse here and there, but at the same time, like you got to live your life, you know? You got to have some separation. And so it's just trying to find that balance in just this new age of social media, because sometimes I feel like people overshare, right? So it's just trying to
It's
find
a
that balance.
delicate balance. Like, don't you kind of feel like, I don't know, I'm 34 years old, and at some point filming myself talking to a camera at a dinner table by myself while I'm in some random country just to tell people that I got a really good pasta in Rome tonight seems a little weird.
Funny. When you put it like that, it sounds awful.
Well, it's strange. Like you have
I feel
people staring at you, and it's like, you know what? I would stare at me too.
Me too.
I know.
Or then you have that you took 20 pictures or someone took 20 pictures of like an interview, and like 19 of them, you see like your hair's like this, your tooth's like this, and you're like, you know, there's like a side part, your arms like this, there's sweat. And then there's one picture where you look at, you're like, post it, baby.
That's the one.
This is great. I know.
This
I
is
feel like
not what I look like, but have at it.
gosh, I know. I felt the other day, I was like, I feel so dumb. I'm like, do you mind taking a picture of me? And they're like, I feel so awkward asking.
We'll
And then,
show it.
like you said, to your point, Lauren, like my hair is all over the place. You can't even see my face. And there's like one, I'm like, yeah, I could turn this looks fine. I don't even, whatever, you know,
Whatever.
Here we are.
Gosh, look, you're covering playoffs and all that type of stuff. You're seeing March Madness. Look, you're in the big moment, so everybody's seeing you. And obviously, you're doing a really good job. So if you don't want to post on social media, don't post on social media. But you can post for Brooke and I because we want to see what's going on.
Yes,
but
okay, I'm
I'm curious, when you
Stress.
are covering, let's start with the playoffs because I feel like that's really exciting. When you're prepping for that, what does that look like? And like, what goes into the outfit choices? What goes into the meetings, the day-to-day of what that looks like for you?
Yes. So playoff baseball is my just joy. It's my greatest joy because you report on these guys all year, and then you get to see them and you get to talk with their families and you get to give the trophy to them. It's like this moment that you just feel like you're in it, you know, and you get to share the joy with them for after 162. There's nothing like it. And, the outfit choices, I need a little bit of help. I'm worried. I'm struggling with it because I'm a real casual dresser on the field. And sometimes I feel like it's too casual, you know, like I'll do those pictures with like a bunch of the girls before and all the girls look amazing. And I'm wearing like Timberlands, but it's what makes me feel comfortable, you know, when you're walking, because you're walking through the dugout in front of the dugout, you know, and I'm like, if I walk in heels, their chances are 10 out of 10 that I'm, you know, hitting the deck. So I'm in like Timberlands.
I love it.
But you know what? That's just the way I like to dress. So that's what I've been doing with my outfits, kind of real casual, real casual. But the playoffs are a different animal because you might get in 10 times a game and you might get in one time a game, and you just have to here's what I do for my prep. I have a binder. I have a little for what Brooke was talking about, like the first hit, I have like a little thing and I wrote it out word for word because I'm not good enough not to. And I got it right in front of me. And if I blank out, I'm going right like this, you know? I was sitting next to a girl. We were all doing our first hits together. She had nothing. Ken Rosenthal, nothing. I said, Ken, if you black out on the World Series, you're toast.
What happened?
He's like, I never have. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
You're like,
So
wait.
I have it written. It doesn't always come out that way. Like I can't really memorize it in time. I would love to. I have it written in front of me. So if like all heck breaks loose, I'm just read. And then during the game, I have a big binder of notes and I've written them down and in the way I would want to say them. Like, and obviously like you have to make shift, right?
Here.
There's going to be reports that you didn't write and all that kind of stuff. But as a rule, I'm very visual, write. You got to write it, you know. How about you guys?
This makes me so happy to hear because I feel like in broadcasting, they're like, don't write things out. Don't do this. And not to say that you go off script, but I think people process information differently. And so what you're saying, I have to write it out and I have to write it in my own words. And obviously, like when the time comes, like I'll, whatever, I'll put it in my own words and I'll say it differently. But like I have to write things out. That's just how I work. So that makes me happy that you said that.
They say, don't write it. I said, what?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. I mean, those people are just better at the craft, because like Ken just doesn't, he has nothing. He has a microphone and he is on an island.
That's wild. Not having any notes for the World Series, that's wild behavior. But that's
what
why
about you, Danny?
Ken
Do
Rosenthal
you
is
write
Ken
it
Rosenthal.
out? I know, exactly.
No, but I don't really, I'm like a photographic memory kind of person. So if I have like a couple
Danny's
notes.
the one, Brooke.
No,
Danny
no,
doesn't write it out.
I knew that was going to happen when I said that. It's not that. It actually makes me more nervous when there's a script. Like I would have failed at acting because I like to improvise and I don't like to feel like I have to say something a certain way. I could probably tell you the same story 17 different ways, depending on how the first few words came out of my mouth. So it helps me become a bit more casual in my delivery and less stiff to not. But that probably means that there's a lot more of me on the back end being like, dang it, I forgot that part of the sentence. You know what I mean? Like, or it probably came out fine and passable. But I will tell you guys, I do a lot of reflection afterwards and think a lot of times, like, I wish I was a little bit more not prepared, because I definitely am prepared, but remembered something or some other. So it probably would be better to write things out. I'm not telling you my way's great.
I think you're the chosen one, to be honest.
It's probably way less stressful doing it Danny's way than it is writing things out. By the way,
here's my behind the scenes. No one cares about this. This is a total tangent. I've literally just peeled all my nails off in the middle of this interview. What am I going to do holding a microphone tomorrow? Does anybody know? Can someone book me a nail appointment?
Yeah, press on CBS, girl. $7.99.
I did. They're done for.
Oh, they're no more.
Laura,
no,
Danny is like a
crazy glue.
Oh, that's
smart. I have to go. Yeah. Well, speak
Italian. Your nails will burn for just 10 seconds. Just power through.
I don't care. We just got to get passable nails. Sorry,
Danny is such a pro
tangent.
when she's over in Europe. She got a spray tan. She found like a nail salon. Like she is just making her own way through Europe, just getting all her errands done.
She has time because she doesn't have to prepare her first hit because she's just smarter than everyone else.
No, I definitely need to prepare.
Why are we the way that we are?
No. For the record, I'm covering tennis, which I didn't play tennis. So my genuine questions are genuinely curiosity. Yeah. It's literally coming from a fan's perspective. I don't know the answer. So I cannot wait till my analyst tells me the answer. So it's really coming from a genuine spot. But this also would never end up on an Instagram story. So here's your non-highlight reel situation. These nasty, crusty little nails. But curious, what's different in your prep for NCAA March Madness? Because you did talk about it for a second, and that's just, to me, the pinnacle, the most amazing thing on the planet is to cover March Madness. And
my gosh,
just any part of bracketology is just so awesome. So what is that like, and how often, because you have to like find out about these teams like 14 seconds before you cover them.
Yeah. So I have binders, 4 of the binders for 4 of the games. I write on the front, the team versus the team with the mascot, the conference, and the coach. That's there. And then I open it. You'll have all their pictures with their names underneath. I go to the website's bio so I can circle it real quick. That's that guy. That's that guy. Because you're learning them. Some of the guys you know, from the big conferences and the big schools, but some of the teams you've never heard of. You've really never heard of the players. And then inside I get 4 stories from each side, and you're going to use about 1 per game, especially unless it's a lopsided. I mean, the game is so quick. You have an interview at the under 12, the under 8 halftime. There's so many interviews. You're getting in very little stories, but you have them if you need them. And then you go into the huddle and try and listen, to the coach. But the coach is talking coach speak, so half the time you're like, I don't know. And then me, because I'm not smart enough, I have to write it down before I do my huddle report. So I'm like frantically in the middle of I'm like in the middle of the guys like this.
What was that? Yeah.
you know,
Can you repeat
and the
that,
coach is looking at me like, get out of the huddle, you know. But it is the most rewarding day. It is the most, my gosh, just it's madness for the broadcaster. I always say that. It's madness for the broadcasters too. And I do it with three of the best: Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy, Dan Bonner. They are just magical at what they do. So it's a beautiful time. I love it.
What
I love it a
happens
lot.
if in those timeouts? Because I've done sideline reporting for basketball, and it's interesting. I was a college basketball player, and I'll be looking left and right like that was the dead timeout. Nothing happened there.
I know.
What do you do then?
I know. Sometimes there's things where you're like the under 12 interview and nothing has happened in the game yet. So I had to go to Jon Calipari thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's probably does not want to answer this question, you know, and you're trying to generate, but not much has happened in the game. And that's the challenge. So what I do going into each game, this is what I do. I have two questions that are just generic. I'll ask the coach before the game, the practice before, and I have a spot in my notebook, under 12, under 8, and I'll say, perfect world, first 4 minutes, what do you want to see? That's the day before. So then when I go into that under 12 question, if I have nothing, if nothing has happened, no one has scored nothing, I say, you told me you wanted physicality. How do they look? You know what I'm saying? So it's like if I'm just down and out, that's my, you know, and then I have end of game questions.
Good.
End of game questions. When I was covering the Gators, and I knew they were going to punch their ticket to the Final Four. It happens fast. They won quickly. You can't formulate the greatest questions there, and obviously you're going to change course. But the questions are, you know, first time, you know, punching your ticket to the Final Four since blank. Why is this the group? You know, so I just have ideas of where I want to go. So I have facts. So I don't have to go to research with 1 minute left. Is this the first time since 2016? Is this the first time since 2009? I already have it. You know what I mean? Like I have an idea and then I just go off of that. The preparation for March Madness is absolutely insane and the most rewarding job I've ever done.
Absolutely phenomenal advice. Actually, phenomenal.
That was great advice.
Under 12, under 8, I've never heard that before. That's wonderful. I took notes just now.
No, I know. Well, because it's so true, because sometimes there's so much going on and then you're talking to the SID, you're trying to tell him who, like, you know, you're wanting to talk to. And so you don't have time to like lock in sometimes and like really think about, you know, the type of questions you're going to ask. So that's really, really good advice, Lauren. I'm curious, you've covered hoops, you've covered, I mean, baseball, you've covered everything. Like, is there anything that you haven't ventured into that you're hoping to explore in your career?
That's such a good question. And the answer is no, nothing. And here's why. I, for the longest time in this business, have tried to, and bigger, better, bigger, better, bigger, better. And the truth is that is not where the happiness lies. And I've learned that. I have learned to stay in the moment. I have learned, I mean, I feel like 𝗏, life's a journey, not a destination. Too often we are trying to get to somewhere and you're not enjoying the now. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it is, my gosh, is it true? I remember going back to, I was in Minot, North Dakota, and I remember thinking, when I get to here, and I was at CBSSports.com, and I was like, when I get to here. And the truth is, I'll never live in Minot, North Dakota again. I'll never be on CBS Sports again. It was just such beautiful times that I never thought I could have lived. And I feel like I wasted them trying to get to the next step.
That's such great. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Brooke. Yeah. I just, no, I don't. I mean, no, the honest answer is no. Like if you were to talk to my agent right now, he would say like, she doesn't even call me. Like, and that's the reason it is because I just want to so cherish this moment in time. It's a moment in time. I'm really big on moments in time because I feel like when we all, at the end of the day, we'll have like about 30 or 40 moments in time where you just remember where you were. You know, there are so many moments in my life where I have about 10 now where I'm like, wow, just take me back to that moment, right? And if we don't enjoy them, my gosh, what are we here for? So, no.
Okay, well, before we let you go, Lauren, we want to play a little game with you if you're down. So it's just kind of a rapid fire and you're going to build your lineup. We're going to call it Lauren's lineup. Are you ready? Okay. Build your dream broadcast team, any sport or any network.
Oh my gosh, dream broadcast team.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like play-by-play analyst.
Yes.
You're going to get me in trouble.
I know. Are we going to get you in trouble?
Okay,
we get fast. We get fast.
What sport are you covering? Baseball?
Which sport? Yes.
Can't do that either. Okay, that's okay. Guess what?
Okay,
We're going to
okay.
build a Lauren's lineup before she's broadcasting scenario. How's that?
Okay.
Go-to hype song before you go on air.
Ooh. Gasolina.
Gasolina. I'm into it.
For every Tuesday night baseball, and they try and get me to dance. I'm like, because you're gonna put it on camera. So I'm like stoic. But
Love
in
that.
my world, in my head, I'm dancing.
Fantastic.
Wait, that is such a good jam, though. I feel like, yeah, it's such a great song to dance to. I love
Can't
that.
not be happy.
Yes, right? Okay, what's your favorite ballpark?
Ooh, a Camden Yards.
That's
Favorite
the one I
ballpark
haven't
snack?
been to yet.
Ballpark, a hot dog and ketchup. And don't come at me with mustard.
I know. I get so much crap in Chicago. They're like, you can't have, ketchup on your hot dog, but that's another story. 3 sports figures if you could have at a dinner party. It could be dead or alive.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, and Willie Mays.
Ooh.
It's a good one.
Also, shout out Michael Jordan. He's going to be on NBC.
Just saw that. How awesome. I just saw that.
know.
That's probably why he's fresh in my mind, Danny.
Yeah, I like it. If you could change one sports rule, if you had the power, what would you change?
The obstruction rule is awarded home. I just saw that. So that's really fresh in my mind. Like there was an obstruction rule at third and he wasn't even blocking the bag. It was the Brewers game over the weekend and he was awarded home in a 1-1 game. It was like, you're giving him a run.
Oh,
That's
I
a
like
good
that.
one.
That was really good. You crushed this.
I know.
Oh, you're so sweet. I don't know about that, but I
It's
loved it.
really
I
fun
had
getting to
fun.
meet you. This is
It's
really
so
fun
nice
getting
to
to meet you. It's
meet
such a pleasure. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Guys, this was
I
an
know.
honor. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks so much, Lauren. And we know how busy you are. And guys, thanks so much for watching. We will see you next week.